Welcome to Fear and Greed, the week ahead, as always, with economist Stephen Koukoulas. You'll find him at thekouk.com, thekouk.com, and on Twitter using the handle thekouk. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, Sean.
First things first, Guy Debelle. You must know him, or at least have
Yes.
been acquaintances with him for many, many years. This is the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank who, late last week, said he's pulling up stumps at the central bank and heading to Fortescue Future Industries, Andrew Forrest's offshoot. What did you make of that?
Well, first of all, good on him for doing it. And as he's sort of disclosed since, it's going to be part of one of his passions. And we know even as Deputy Governor, he was heavily involved in a lot of the climate change issues and how businesses, governments and governance can be adjusted to make sure that we're fully aware of some of the climate change issues. So that's a good thing. But given that Phil Lowe's term comes up in about 18 months or so, it was a shock because you're giving up arguably one of the most prestigious positions in Australia, RBA governor, and he was really short odds to get the job when Phil finished up in 18 months or so. So to give that up, not just the prestige, but $1 million a year too is not bad. To give that up says to me that perhaps there's something more just underpinning his decision to leave. And we know the RBA's had some internal problems the last couple of years that it hasn't done a great job in hitting its inflation target, and it hasn't done a great job in listening to alternative views. So maybe that fed into his decision as well. Who knows? That might come out at a later date.
I thought it was interesting on Friday, Governor Philip Lowe was talking and he said he was totally surprised by the decision.
Yes. I think that Guy would have kept it very much under his hat. And again, without sort of breaching any great sort of confidences that are around. And certainly none with Guy. So I have not spoken to Guy. No, not at all. But, for several years, the RBA's had a bit of a problem in terms of its willingness to have an open mind, I think. And there has been some dissent in terms of when they should have cut rates in the easing cycle, even before COVID came along. It missed its inflation target for approximately 5 years before it cut. And now there's a similar debate, probably going on with the Fed as well, who haven't hiked rates yet, but other central banks as inflation's picking up. Should we give a preemptive hike right now? Just 25, 50 basis points. And clearly Phil's not keen on the issue. I'm just wondering whether other people in the bank would have been a bit more hawkish in this high inflation cycle that's unfolding.
The other thing I just want to mention about last week before we get on to the labour force data this week, the incredible ride of commodity prices last week and what it means, for inflation and global growth.
Well, we've seen staggering volatility, more volatility up than down for a whole range of commodity prices. A lot of ag prices, wheat price surged, I think it was 50 or 60% in a number of days. It's come off a bit sort of early this week, but things like nickel prices were up 80%. They actually banned trading or stopped trading because there was just no depth to the markets there, and these price swings were incredible. Oil prices we're seeing with our petrol price when we fill up the car over the weekend. Gosh, that was a bit of a nasty shock. So this commodity price surge is one of the consequences. It was sort of happening before the Ukraine-Russia war commenced, but it really has got to kick along with that disruption to so many important commodities around the economy now.
So what's it mean, though? Is the fear that these commodity prices pushes through not just to headline inflation, but also underlying inflation, and then global growth slows as well. So you kind of have a situation you don't want.
It's not good for the world economy. Australia will probably do okay because we've got a lot of commodity exporters, both agriculture and the mining sector, of course. And so if you look at the share price of a lot of the coal producers and the like, they've actually done pretty well on the back of the high prices, obviously. But what it might mean is that we do have this cost pressure for a lot of businesses who rely on these input costs, not just transport companies with energy and oil and these sorts of things. But if you're getting nickel and copper prices sort of zooming the way that they have, wheat prices feeding into foodstuffs and the like, we are going to be getting headline inflation rates. And we saw at the end of last week, the US had a 7.9 annual inflation rate. Gosh, the highest in 40 odd years. Does that get even built upon further when these prices filter through into their measures of inflation? The answer is probably yes. And are we looking at a scenario that come the middle of this year, we're seeing the US, the Eurozone, UK, Canada, maybe even Australia having inflation rates sort of testing 10%. I can't believe I just said that, but, it's not impossible the way these commodity prices are going.
Okay. So the big one this week is labour force. The unemployment rate, will it go below 4%?
There's a chance. These are for the month of February. And we know that January took a little bit of a hit with the numbers. Certainly the hours worked fell very sharply in January because of Omicron, people being impacted by it, either directly by getting the illness or staying home or isolating when a family member got it. So we know those numbers were arguably a bit softer than they would have otherwise been. So given we know that job ads and job vacancies have again been booming, the NAB Business Confidence Survey pointed to ongoing strength in demand for labour. So if we get a plus 40 odd thousand in employment and the participation rate doesn't change much, we could, for the first time since 1974, see an unemployment with a 3 point something. Maybe not this month, but it's probably coming in the months ahead.
Yeah, quite incredible, isn't it? I mean, surely you're getting towards full employment then, which part of the reason the Reserve Bank doesn't cut interest rates is it's also legislated to push for full employment. Surely we're close to full employment.
I think we are. And of course, it's a bit of a moving feast. And the only way you can tell whether you've got to full employment is with hindsight when wages growth picks up. And again, that's what Dr. Lowe's been going on about with his reluctance to hike rates like our friends in New Zealand or the UK and Canada. He's saying that, look, we're slightly different. We haven't had that pickup in wages. And to that extent, he's correct. We need to see this wage growth picking up. But with a 4% or sub 4% unemployment rate coming, you would think that wages growth is sort of in the pipeline right now and that we're going to see that wages growth pick up. And certainly the anecdotes from just about every business I speak to, be it in the bush where I was last week in Charleville or in the big smoke in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, businesses are finding it really, really hard to attract labour. Skilled, semi-skilled, low-skilled workers, they can't find them. They're paying up. And so I think it's just a matter of time before we see our wages numbers probably in the next quarter or two really kicking higher.
Just the other one I wanted to quickly mention is the population figures for the September quarter. Seems like a long time ago. Yeah. But, immigration, those sorts of things will show through on that, won't they?
Yes, we'll for the September quarter, yes, it does seem a long time ago. But don't forget that's when we were still very, very much in lockdown. We had the East Coast lockdown when we had our concerns about how we're managing the COVID crisis. So we're probably going to see immigration again slightly negative, more people going out of Australia than coming in. Luckily, we're still having a few babies, so probably natural increase will be a little bit higher, so more babies than deaths. So the numbers, though, are suggesting that really when you look at the last 2 years or since the COVID crisis hit us at the beginning of 2020, we'll have had almost no population growth, immigration probably negative, minus 100,000 or thereabouts in those 18 months or so, but natural increase up about 150,000. So population growth very weak, big implications for the businesses in Australia that rely on orders of magnitude, economies of scale to make their money. And of course, when you've got weak population growth, it's harder to do.
Stephen, have a great week.
Thank you, Sean.
That was economist Stephen Koukoulas, better known as The Kouk. You can find him at thekouk.com and follow him on Twitter using the handle The Kouk. I'm Sean Aylmer, and this is Fear and Greed, the week ahead.